Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 57 of the Runnin the Paint podcast. I'm Miles. I'm here with Nick. Nick, how are you doing today?
What's up, everybody? I'm doing well. Had a really good, fun week watching the draft. Get to see a lot of guys that I paid attention to during the March Madness run last year have their big day, have their name called, and that's always fun to watch. Always cool to see what they have to say in that moment, and you learn a lot from seeing how those guys respond in that moment.
Yeah, no question about it. It's been a great last couple days seeing all these guys really get to see their dreams coming true, getting to walk up with the commissioner Adam Silver there, and finally getting to the NBA. But it was a bit of a crazy, unexpected draft. With the first year of it being in this 2-day format. So let's go to the NBA draft. We'll go into the first round. We'll go pick by pick here for the first few here. Starting with the Atlanta Hawks at number 1, they did end up drafting Zachary Risachet, which was a bit of a consensus pick coming up this week after it was pretty sure that Alex Sarr would be the pick. But then it came out Alex Sarr declined all workouts with the Hawks. So the Hawks went with Risachet. Nick, what are your first thoughts on Atlanta going this direction?
Yeah, so I said this in my mock draft video on my YouTube channel, but Risachet is a guy who can be effective in the same ways that Michael Porter Jr. is for the Denver Nuggets, like right away. And he's also a great defender. So this I listened to the Low Post earlier today, and they were talking about how this is kind of an indication as to where the league is at, like how much they value these guys who can shoot the ball from deep and space the floor, and then also be a impact player on the other end. Like to have a 3-and-D threat who is 6'9" and can shoot over the top. These guys are at a premium, and this was a great example of that.
Yeah, Risachet, I think it's definitely an interesting pick. I mean, the Hawks are in a very interesting situation with one of their guards probably going to get traded. They have 2 centers. Clint Capella might get traded. And they already have Jalen Johnson at the 4. That's really their only solidified piece there. And even then, they still have guys like Bogdan Bogdanovic, DeAndre Hunter at the 3. So Risachet can come in, play off those other guys, and he's the prototypical, from what all I'm seeing, a prototypical 3-and-D wing that can really help out in a lot of different areas. So I guess this is really the first step to the Hawks offseason. We'll see whatever moves they decide to make to see if they want to still be competitive, try to make a playoff push, or if they end up trading for a bunch of draft picks and going a rebuild route. Either way, though, I mean, the Hawks were in a tough position kind of here with the number 1 pick and not the best sort of draft as far as talent, but they got their guy Risachet, and we'll see how that all pans out.
Yeah, you mentioned it that like Alex Sarr was he had a lot of hype surrounding him like throughout most of the season as the number 1 pick, but I do think the fit for Atlanta works better here with Risachet just because, like you said, Clint Capella and their I don't know, their center room, I guess. Like he can't naturally sort of slide into the starting 5. And I don't know if Risachet will either, but he will definitely play better, like you said, off the guys that they already have. Whereas with Sarr, like the Wizards should have their front court for the future now.
Oh, look, Washington, I think. So then they get Alex Sarr at 2, which was a no-brainer at this point. I mean, I said in our draft preview episode that, look, if the Wizards can get Alex Sarr, this is a win of a draft because they that center position, they needed to fill that, and they got the best big in this draft. We'll see how it works. Like all these guys, especially the overseas players from France that we'll get to coming up in the draft, it's a lot of project players in this draft, and Washington is a perfect place where those guys can develop. But that's not the only pick that the Wizards made here. They jumped in. They made a trade earlier today.
That's right.
To acquire Bub Carrington, a pick from the Blazers. They got the 14th pick, and they got Bub Carrington, and then they also traded with the Knicks to get pick 24 to get Keyshawn George from the University of Miami. So the Wizards did a great job here of not being satisfied with getting their guy Alex Sarr and jumping in and getting two other talented guards.
Yeah, I mean, we were all surprised that Washington finally went full rebuild last year with the Bradley Beal trade. I know that they said that they would never press the full rebuild button, but they did, and they went out and got 3 first-rounders this year. So kudos to them.
Now we'll go to the trade that they made on Wednesday with them dealing a bit of a surprise here. Not many of us saw this coming.
No.
Them dealing Denny Avdia, their starting small forward, to the Portland Trailblazers for Malcolm Brogdon, that 14th pick, Bub Carrington, 2029 first-round pick, and 2 future second-round picks. This was a bit of a surprise here that the Wizards ended up dealing Denny, because he is coming off of a very, very solid breakout season. A year where he was able to show a lot of things on both sides of the court, 14 points, 7 boards, 4 assists on very high efficiency, able to do a lot of things on both ends for a bad Wizards team. But he showed a lot of traits that can be, applicable to a lot of other teams across the league. And I was just surprised that he ended up getting traded but then Portland being the destination for him. And I think it's a great pickup for the Blazers.
Yeah, I mean, Denny's a great two-way guy. The Blazers got better defensively last night, that's for sure, with Klingon and this Avdia trade. But this is a very valuable guy. Avdia, you talked about it earlier, he's on a declining contract. He's a very good role player who's going to get paid less than $15 million a year in 2029, which is a little bit before that, whenever his contract expires. But I also mentioned earlier to Miles that he's so good on 2K. Denny is another 3-and-D sort of guy that everyone in the league wants someone like him. He's a bit undersized and maybe a little slower than Risache or some other MPJ type guys. But he's someone that can guard multiple positions and space the floor and has just a really high, clean neck for the ball. He knows how to play, and he's young. He's only 23.
Yeah, Portland, just a great move to get Denny Avdia. Last year, for the last couple years, their defense, they've been very bad on that end of the floor, bottom 10 in defense the last couple seasons, and they addressed that on Wednesday, getting Denny Avdia, drafting Donovan Klingon at 7, which was a huge get for them. I don't know how many people expected him to end up going to the Blazers. This sets them up for a very intriguing offseason, because now they've got Klingon in there with DeAndre Ayton and Robert Williams, who was injured for most of last season, but he's a great defensive big who is still on that roster. So they probably have another move coming their way to fill up that center room, maybe similar to the Atlanta Hawks. But great move to get Denny Avdia. Also considering their small forward position was probably their weakest one. I know Tamani Kamara had a solid rookie season. I know you're a big fan of him, Nick. But
I am a big fan of him.
Obviously, definitely an upgrade to get Denny Avdia there that can, maybe develop more. Like we mentioned earlier, his contract, so he makes $15 million, I believe, next season, but then it declines by 1 for the next 3 years after that. So that's just a great contract to put defenders around Scoot Henderson and Anthony Simons, so on and so forth. But getting back to the Wizards, I honestly like the trade for them. At first I was like, why are you dealing Denny before Kuzma? That just that didn't make much sense.
Yeah,
to me.
I agree.
Washington, I think them, along with some other teams that we will get to, most namely probably the San Antonio Spurs, who also made a trade on draft night. I think they understand the importance of being patient, and that this isn't a horrible time to be bad right now.
Just a real quick, I'll touch on that because, everyone's operating in this short kind of window. We haven't had a back-to-back champion in 6 or 7 years. So everyone is a lot of teams are in win now mode, which means if you're not in win now mode, you're not in the majority. So you can think for a little bit and try and hope that maybe there's less dogs at the top when you want to be there.
Yeah, and when you look at it for, these teams like the Wizards and the Spurs that are going to be in the lottery most likely next year. Detroit, Charlotte, potentially Portland. 2025 is the draft that is looked at to be insane, especially compared to this year. That is said to be the mother lord of drafts with talent at the top there, most namely Cooper Flagg being the top prospect going into this season. So being bad again this year to get a top pick next year, that's not a bad route to go for these teams. And I think that's why Washington made the trade to get rid of Denny to go into being bad again. You mentioned they leaned into that last year with the deals for with Bradley Beal, Kristaps Porzingis, and be bad again this year to get yourself another top pick to maybe get that franchise-altering guy, because there may not be that franchise guy in this draft. So just, rebuild again this year, and then maybe you can get a top pick next year and you can get that guy to change your franchise.
Or Sarr is that guy, and you got him.
Maybe there is that possibility. He's going to have a lot of opportunities there this first year to develop as that main big guy there with the Wizards. So the fact that they're in this direction here with young talent, getting Sarr, getting Carrington, and getting Keyshawn George, I think it's great. They did a great job in this draft. If I had to give them a grade, it would definitely be in the A's.
Yeah.
Because you got your guy at 2, and you slid in and got another lottery pick and another, sharpshooter there at the end of the first round. So good job by the Wizards there. Now going to number 3 with the Houston Rockets. They end up drafting Reed Sheppard. We thought that there might be a trade for this pick because, Donovan Clingan, who ended up going to the Blazers, he was probably the most sought after guy here that you saw a lot of teams trying to trade for. But in the end, Houston does not trade this pick, and they end up getting Reed Sheppard, another guy that can fit in with all the talent that they already have with the Rockets.
Yeah, I told you guys in the last episode I really wanted Sheppard to land in Houston because I think he's going to work great as a duo pair with Amen Thompson, because Thompson, I talked about last year, he's one of the best downhill sort of guards. Another guy who plays on both ends, but his main thing is that he can get downhill and get past his guy and force rotational help. And Reed Sheppard is one of the best off-ball players out of this draft class, if not the best. We saw him at Rob Dillingham at Kentucky last year. Those two had just an electric season together. And I think that much like the Wizards have their front court of the future with Coulibaly and Alex Sarr in place, I think Houston has their backcourt with Reed Sheppard and Amen Thompson in place.
And then even still, they still have so much young talent on this team outside of that. When you look at, obviously Şengün, Jabari Smith Jr., Jalen Green being so fantastic for them. Last season, Jalen Green, that last month being, incredible. But then you look outside of that as well with Cam Whitmore having a very efficient rookie season in limited minutes, putting up, 12 points per game in just 19 minutes per. Then you go to Tari Eason. You already mentioned Amen Thompson, Reed Sheppard coming in. And then your veterans like Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks. They got Steven Adams. Jeff Green is still there. Like, this is a team that could be dangerous in the Western Conference next season. With them picking Reed Sheppard, I'm interested to see where he will end up playing this first year because – I would expect Fred VanVleet and Jalen Green to be their starting backcourt going into next year. So I'm curious to see how the bench ends up working out there because of Amen Thompson, Tari Eason, and then Reed Sheppard getting drafted.
Here's how I would run out opening night. I would go Fred, Green, maybe like a vet, like at the 3.
Would you go Dylan Brooks 3 still?
Oh, yeah, Dylan Brooks, perfect. Şengün. And maybe I don't know who are they. Jabari Smith, right?
Smith.
Yeah. That's the 5 to start. And you can bring Thompson and Reed off the bench. You got Steven Adams coming off the bench too with Jeff Green. I mean, that's a solid 9-man rotation right there.
And Cam Whitmore as well. There, he should have a big second year too.
You got 3 bigs in there between Şengün, Jabari Smith, and Steven Adams. You can rotate those guys and keep their minutes all intact, like under 40. And then whoever's got the hot hand, you go to them. Jalen Green, Fred VanVleet, Reed Sheppard, Amen Thompson. Yeah, it's kind of scary. Yeah, Jackson ain't here to talk about it, though. So we can move on from the stank Rockets until they actually win a couple games.
That's right. Oh, well, we'll talk a little bit more about Houston because they
Yeah, we
made
do.
a trade on Tuesday night, even before this draft, a big trade that we'll get to talking about later, where some of those young guys and maybe some of their vets may not even be there when the season starts, which would be crazy if they end up going big name chasing. But we'll get to that later. For now, let's go to the San Antonio Spurs at 4, getting their point guard Stephon Castle to pair with Victor Wembanyama at the 5. Nick, what were your thoughts on Stephon Castle going to the Spurs?
Yeah, not a surprise. This is who we thought they would go with. I thought that weren't you talking about like you wanted this was your pick that you wanted to see?
Yes, I wanted them to just go point guard, and I thought this was their best bet to get a point guard in the draft.
You were saying that if Rob Dillingham ends up being better though, then it might look kind of bad for the Spurs because they traded him.
Yes, that was something that was pretty interesting. So they had 4 and 8, and they ended up trading pick 8, which was Rob Dillingham. They traded him to the Minnesota Timberwolves for 2 future first-round picks that most likely won't be very valuable. It was Rob Dillingham for, I believe, a 2030 unprotected first-round pick, and then 2031 top 1 protected. So Anthony Edwards at that point is going to be like probably in the middle of his prime and probably still in Minnesota. I don't see those first round picks meaning much. So if it ends up that Rob Dillingham is somehow better than Stephon Castle and you could have had him instead, that will look bad on the Spurs. But I don't think that they should be worried about that at all at this point, because I think Stephon Castle should fit there very, very well. I mean, with Wemby, with Devin Vassell. They're another team that I think they traded pick 8 because, like I was saying with the Wizards, this is another year where you can be bad. I know everyone's going to say, Victor Wembanyama, you should win right away. He's a generational talent. Get as much talent as you can in the draft. Now, while he's young there, don't try to speed up the process when the Western Conference is already so loaded and you're probably not going to win anything this year anyway, even if you do get some talent, a veteran guy this year.
Definitely, yeah. San Antonio knows what they're doing. I trust their process, and they got the guy that they wanted, so they were happy with that. It seems.
That's all that matters. Like for a lot of these teams, maybe teams lower down, like that may have made questionable picks. Like if your guy is there, you got to pick your guy, and I think that's what a lot of these teams ended up doing.
Yeah, like Detroit at the next spot, I guess.
Yeah,
they really wanted Ron Holland.
Yeah. What do you think about this move?
So the thing with Ron Holland is that he's just not a floor spacer. Like he doesn't have the knockdown shooting natural ability that you really need in the NBA today. But he can do a lot of other things. Like he's probably the most athletic guy in this class. I'm fairly comfortable saying that because he at 18 averaged over 20 points per game without being able to shoot the ball in the G League last year. Like that isn't easy to do.
Yeah,
and he can just do a lot of things and get to a lot of places and move in a lot of ways, get to a lot of like loose balls and tips, blocks that just other people simply can't because he is a 6'8", 220 some pound like wrecking ball, and he knows how to play. So he was projected as the top pick in this class in years past, but that shooting ability and just like not being the best player on his team last year, I don't think he was. I think Matas Buzelis was the best player in the G League last year. But this was a solid pick, and I had him top 5. He was pretty much a top 10 consensus. If he slipped any further than that, it was going to be really alarming. Yeah,
so Ron Holland going at 5. The shooting, so something that is kind of going under the radar, I think, with the Pistons. The last few years have been terrible. We've been questioning what they've been doing. But this summer, when they hired Trajan Langdon to be their general manager coming over from the Pelicans, something that he did was bring over assistant coach from the Pelicans, Fred Vinson, who is nicknamed the Shot Doctor for getting guys like Herb Jones to improve his three-point shooting a whole lot. So now maybe you can get that with Ron Holland, Asar Thompson already there. He had a brutal year shooting the ball, but did a lot of other things, very, very well for his rookie season. So if you can improve that shooting, and Detroit has plenty of time to develop him with all their other young guys. I think that this could end up being a very solid pick. I thought that Buzelis would go around here as well. When we get to biggest surprises from the draft, him falling to 11 is definitely one of the bigger ones that not a lot of us saw coming. But I think that the Pistons, it's a solid pick. They're going to have a lot of time to develop him. He's someone that's athletic, along with Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey. So I think it works. I think it'll work.
Yeah. The only thing is, like, the Pistons might have a really good defense next year, but their floor spacing is so bad between, like, the starting five being Ivy, Cunningham, potentially Ron Holland, who shot like 22% last year, and then Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart, who are not threats from beyond the arc. So is Isaiah Stewart a 3-point guy? Is he a stretch?
He can make threes. Like this season, he shot 38% on 4 attempts per game, which is pretty solid because he came in not shooting at all. He is someone that could potentially move on. I think he's a restricted free agent, but even then, if you bring him back, if he is your best 3-point shooter in your starting lineup, it's not a good thing. not a good thing at all. So, but not a bad pick at all for the Pistons. I think that they, like I said, they'll have time to work on their shots and develop that. Now let's go to the Charlotte Hornets at 6, picking Tidjane Salon. Another French guy. 3 French players going in the top 6 of this draft. What did you think about Salon going to the Hornets? He's a guy that we all thought would be like, man, him to the Spurs at 8 would be great to pair with him and Wemby, but he ends up going 6 to the Hornets. What do you think about this?
Yeah, he was someone I had no idea who he was coming in until I started doing some real research, like in the middle of May, end of April, about the draft and stuff. And the first time I watched him on film, I was like, oh my gosh, how have I never heard of this dude? He is like everything that Zachary Risichet is. Like I said in my also mock draft video, that the comparison for Tidjane Salon, and this is like not a good thing to do for a YouTube mock draft video, was another guy in the draft. So I compared Salon to Risichet because they're very similar players. And no, I think he's going to have a very good career because he came from like his parents played basketball. His sister is a professional player in France right now. So he's been around the game and he's coming from overseas. Like he's going to be humble. He's going to have the right approach to getting better every day. And I think hopefully he can like maybe instill some of that in like LaMelo and Brandon. And like, I don't know, that'd be cool to see those 3 really develop together.
Yeah, because Brandon Miller, like last year, he really had a great rookie season. Like it was definitely overshadowed because Victor Wembanyama was just incredible. Any other year, we would all be talking about, oh my gosh, Brandon Miller, this guy was incredible this season. On both ends of the floor, really instilled the defensive energy across his teammates. He was a real leader out there. And getting Salon, who has a lot of competes. He's a good athlete. He hustles a lot, has good energy. If he can, bring that along with Brandon Miller to this Hornets team where defense has been a big problem over the last several seasons, really since LaMelo's gotten there. If they can improve that, that's huge for this team because when healthy, this Hornets team has been very solid offensively. So if they can just improve the defense, you're back to being competitive. That's really where it starts on the defensive end. So not a bad pick there at all, getting another defender there. And he fills a need there. That power forward position is something that they definitely needed to go a little bit younger on. Because I think really only one there was Grant Williams. They started the year with PJ Washington, who they ended up trading. So getting Salon, good move there for the Hornets. Not a lot of bad picks here from the top, I don't think.
No, I was just about to say these top 7 picks with Klingon next to Portland, I thought all went like in order as expected. Like there wasn't no one drafted out of place. Now 8 was that a little high for Rob, but we'll get there.
Yeah, so we'll talk about the Blazers a little bit more. We already talked about them and their deal, getting Denny Avdia. But Donovan Klingon at the 5, a very, like I said, maybe the most sought-after player in the top of this draft. And it was a bit of a surprise to me when it came up to their pick and they ended up getting Klingon because, with the Blazers already having their bigs there, I did not think that they would be going for another center there to clog up all that room. But they got Donovan Clingan. They were thinking, let's get the best guy available. And they were thinking defense the last couple of days. So, I mean, great pick by the Blazers to get their guy who can really help, the other Blazers guards there.
My thing with Clingan is just I really am skeptical about his ability to play at the pace of the NBA game and just getting up and down the court at the same rate as Scoot and Anthony Simons and Shaedon Sharpe. Like, those guys are all trying to attack and get out in the open court and beat you down off misses, or even taking the ball out of the net and trying to get transition buckets before the defense can get back. I think Clingan's going to have a tough time playing at that speed consistently, which maybe they will let him like kind of ease into it and not necessarily give him the runway right from the jump, and keep Rob Williams and DeAndre Ayton on the roster so that maybe he can come off the bench a little bit more in the beginning.
Yeah, that would probably be a smart move to not.
With that being said,
yeah,
at the best, he could be like the next Kristaps Porzingis. He's got the frame. He's got not the 3-point shot yet. He's a great defender. He's got the length. So like that is what you're betting. Like that's what you're putting your money into.
Yeah, I mean, he coming into this draft, he probably was noted the best defender, definitely the best rim protector in this draft. So, it definitely could work out for Portland to slowly bring him along with those other bigs there. That's another way to look at it. You're able to, not force him right into the starting lineup, throw him into the fire immediately. And he can learn from Ayton and Rob Williams as well. Like Rob Williams, former all-defensive player, still very solid on that end of the floor. So he can learn a lot from him. So now we go to 8 with the Spurs drafting Rob Dillingham and then trading him to Minnesota for those first-round picks. I thought this was huge for Minnesota to get in this draft. And not only to get Rob Dillingham, they also got Terrence Shannon Jr. at 27, who, we were talking in the preview, who do we think the biggest steal would be? You guys said Terrence Shannon Jr., and he looks very, very good. So him and Rob Dillingham both going to the Timberwolves when they didn't have, any lottery picks. Look, this team, they were a Final Four team. They were in the conference finals, and they were able to get, the 8th pick. They were able to get a very solid point guard, which is a position of need for them. Once Mike Conley is out of the pipeline and he's too old to, keep playing those starter heavy minutes, you can play Rob Dillingham in there, and he could fit in next to those bigs and Anthony Edwards there in Minnesota.
Yeah, you talk about giving a grade for a draft in the A's. Like, Minnesota's A++ for me, because the reason I didn't pick them to win versus Dallas came down to the fact that they didn't have enough offensive firepower to surround Anthony Edwards with, and I didn't think that was going to – I thought that was going to be the difference. And yesterday they went out and got two great – the best offensive player in the draft, and Rob Dillingham. Said that in my mock draft video. Go watch it if you haven't. I mentioned it like 8 times already. And then – because he is the best offensive player in this draft, I thought. And then they got Terrence Shannon Jr., who's another top 5 offensive guy potentially in this draft, because he's a little bit older out of Illinois, but he has all the tools to be effective at the NBA level right away. And I think they're going to make a huge impact in Minnesota next year. And yeah, that was A++ for me.
Yeah, shout out to the Timberwolves for just getting into the draft and getting a guy that they needed. We really had no clue that the Timberwolves were even thinking about trading to the top 10. So them getting Rob Dillingham is just great. And then, of course, Terrence Shannon Jr. late in the first round. Huge for them. So now we go to the Memphis Grizzlies at 9, who tried so many times to try to trade up to get Donovan Clingan, because that would have been the perfect fit there with Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson, the perfect big. He goes to Portland at 7, so they go with the next big on their board, and they go with Zach Edey at 9. And I was pretty shocked by this. I did not expect him to go this high, but I like it. I think that he's a guy that could contribute right away, being an older guy, and he can help set screens for Ja Morant. He's a good pick and roll player, great post player. We'll see how often they use him there. The athleticism is definitely a question mark as far as, like you said with Clingan, will they be able to keep up with the NBA level? And while I think it may take some time, I mean, Memphis, they've been successful with guys like Jonas Valanciunas and Steven Adams running their five, who are not the most athletic guys, to say the very least. So I think that Zach Edey could be the perfect pick for them after, Klingon went 7.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to open up Jaren Jackson to be the true best version of himself, because this Zach Edey's the perfect rim protector to put next to him to take some pressure off him. But I also was very surprised at this pick. I thought Edey was potentially like a bottom of the first round type of guy. That's where I wouldn't have drafted him in the. I have the same problem with Klingon as I did with Edey. I will be on the record as saying that I don't think either of them will last more than 5 years in the league, because I just don't see it happening. But with that being said, he's a great pick and roll partner for Ja Morant. He's going to force switches and really, like, good luck getting around Zach Edey at 7 whatever and 7'11" wingspan. If you're trying to guard Ja Morant already, and then you got Zach Edey coming to put his, good luck. So that'll definitely work from the beginning. Those two will be great. And I think the rim protection with Jaren Jackson will be really good and make an impact in the beginning. But this team is really ready to make a run now. And you're talking about starting a guy in his first year who has a lot of question marks around him.
Yeah, we'll see if they end up starting him. Similar with, the Grizzlies even more so, as far as, like, I don't think they want to throw him out in the fire immediately, because this is a team that is trying to win now. So we'll see if they can get another center in there, or maybe they will start Jaren Jackson at the 5 and then just test out, Edey and Jackson together, maybe in backup second unit minutes there. Moving on to 10, we got the Utah Jazz drafting Cody Williams, and this was one of your guys coming in. You happy with where he landed in Utah?
Yeah, I think he'll be good out there, because he's got Colin Sexton, Keontae George to learn from too in that guard room, and then obviously Lauri Markkanen's a great forward to surround yourself with, who can set you up a lot, and also you can make plays for him. Yeah, no, I think Cody was drafted in a respectable spot. I think he's going to be better than some of the guys that were drafted ahead of him, but that's just me. I'm just really excited to see him get the opportunity to play in the summer league with the guys that Utah drafted, because another team that had a great night was Utah.
Yeah, Utah really had a great night. They made a lot of picks. They drafted Cody Williams at 10. Second round, they were able to steal Kyle Filipowski at pick 32, which was a bit of a shock that he, fell that far down.
Mm-hmm.
Just off that, I think that it was a, W of a draft for Utah. I feel like I'm forgetting one guy that they also they drafted Isaiah Collier from
That's right
as well. Another great draft there for the Utah Jazz, trading in and getting other first round guys. I think all those players will get opportunities to, come in and play and get their opportunity. That's just how it is in Utah. Eventually you're going to get a chance to get your opportunity there. So you just, none of these teams had a bad draft. It's really hard to find a team that had a bad draft there.
Oh, we're getting there.
Oh, you think so? Well, we have a lot of other things to talk about besides the draft. So moving on, are there any notes that you kind of want to hit before we move on?
Let's see. Kel'el Ware was, I thought, really interesting to the Heat, because he has a lot of potential. He's a 7-footer who just is rumored. I don't know too much about him. Like, they said that he's not a Heat culture guy and that he doesn't play as hard as he could. But if the Heat can kind of like brainwash him into becoming like a secondary Bam Adebayo, like, that would be absolutely so scary for Miami to have that on their bench.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the Ringers 2024 NBA draft guide, and it says that Kel'el Ware has shades of Miles Turner. So if he can have a 3-point shot next to Bam, who they just extended, that'd be great. To be a shot blocker, interior scorer, lob threat, that'd definitely be huge. Looking at other moves in this, Matas Buzelis going to Chicago at 11. He fell a lot, and I'm sure that sucked. That not a great feeling to fall down a bunch of spots, but you end up going to your hometown team, the Chicago Bulls. And I think that, for a franchise that we've questioned their moves a lot, this was, a great pick for them. He falls right into your lap. You got to pick Matas Buzelis. We'll see if he can improve the 3-point shot. after an off year there for the G League.
He'll be better than Patrick Williams. I can say that pretty confidently.
Yeah, because Patrick Williams hasn't been the best. He's a restricted free agent too, so we'll see if they're forced to pay him a big contract if a team tries to pry him away from Chicago. OKC getting Nikola Topic at 12. I mean, this is perfect. I mean, he's not going to play this first year with the injury, but I mean, it's not like you needed him to anyway. He could just, rehab and then develop under that great, organization. And, it's just great that they were able to get Nikola Topic, a guy that was ranked at the top of a lot of, draft boards coming into the year. And he goes to the number one team in the West and one of the championship favorites for the next couple of years.
You don't think that it would have been better to get someone who could have impacted winning a little bit more now?
Yeah, so there are questions that, there are a lot of, talks out there that they maybe should have gotten a big guy because that was their biggest weakness, is that they didn't have a big guy. Rebounding was their biggest question. But, I mean, they still have money to get big guys. I think that the Thunder, you don't completely want all young guys. That's another thing. They need experience. They need veterans. There are some veteran big guys out there in the free agent market that they can acquire, or they could trade some picks to get big guys. So I think I like it. I mean, I think this is the perfect spot to take a chance on someone. This kind of reminds me, and we'll see if this ends up working out, where the Nuggets took Michael Porter at 14 in the 2018 draft, where you're a very talented team. You're going to be in the playoffs. You have plenty of time where he can rehab, and it really doesn't make that much of a difference. Like a team like the Wizards or the Spurs, like you can't really afford to waste a whole year where you can't, you're in the lottery and you draft someone that can't even play the first year. OKC has the, flexibility to be able to do that. So I think that it was a great pick for them to get Topic at 12.
The last guy I want to talk about is the guy who slipped all the way to the Lakers. The SEC Player of the Year. I think he was a JUCO national champion. Dalton Knecht is 23 or 24. He played 4 years in college. Made it to Tennessee last year after transferring, and became the SEC Player of the Year in his first year. So this is a guy who went to JUCO, went to lower level D, like a mid-level D1, and then finally made it to Tennessee. And he's just improved every single time he's gotten the opportunity to play. And there's no reason to expect anything different, surrounded by the best player ever in LeBron. And then a new head coach who, we've seen his offensive schemes and he does the podcast and stuff. He should be able to work Dalton right in the same ways that maybe Austin Reeves will.
Yeah, I think that this makes up for their screw up, you can say, last year, where they had Jaime Jaquez right there waiting for them, but they took Jalen Hood-Schifino instead, who really didn't play a whole lot. They get a guy that can come in, immediately being one of the older guys in this draft class, maybe the oldest guy, 23 years old, can come in, be a shooter next to LeBron, if he, stays with the Lakers, which he probably will, considering that they drafted Bronny James. Shout out to Bronny getting drafted by the Lakers.
A very cool moment, honestly.
Yeah, very, very cool moment. I mean, people can say whatever they want about how, he forced his way there. Look, if your son was about to come to the NBA, you would force him to your own team too. So, come on. I think it's a great moment there. It's going to be crazy to see them on the floor at some point this season. Probably won't be a whole lot because the Lakers, Bronny, he is the 55th overall pick at the end of the day. He probably won't get a whole lot of opportunities to play real minutes. But either way, super cool moment. And shout out to Bronny and the whole James family, because it really was an incredible moment.
Definitely.
Other guys, before we move on, I think the Kings getting Devin Carter at 13 is going to be good for them. It prompted them to make a trade today as we're recording this. They dealt their former lottery pick, Davion Mitchell, along with Sasha Vezenkov, to the Toronto Raptors for Jalen McDaniels. So them getting Devin Carter to fill in with another guard there that can play some defense, that's going to be good for Sacramento, because defense is something that they need work on as well. I feel like I've said that with a lot of these teams, but this draft included a lot of defensive players that can help out. And that's what the Kings got there at 13. I think we were mentioning before that the Orlando Magic getting Tristan da Silva could be pretty good. Maybe not this first year because the Magic have so many young guys that they're going to play already, but down the line, that could be very solid for Orlando. Jalen Tyson to the Cavs. I like that pick. Deron Holmes ending up going to the Nuggets to be a backup. That could be huge for them. I think a lot of these, contending teams made solid picks that could help them from the jump.
2 first-round picks out of Dayton in 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
Like, I watched Tamani Kamara and Deron Holmes for a couple of years, and I didn't expect Deron Holmes to be a first-round pick.
Yeah, now he's going to the Nuggets to eventually be Jokic's backup, which is it's super neat, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. Great draft. It's going to be fun to see all these guys' career pan out. I mean, like we said, this may not be the craziest draft, but these are all still some of these guys are going to be key contributing players.
Diamonds hidden in the rough.
Yeah. So moving on, let's go past the draft here to the day before where we had a blockbuster trade out of absolute nowhere with the Brooklyn Nets finally making the move, trading Mikal Bridges to the New York Knicks, along with a 2028 second-round pick in exchange for Bojan Bogdanovic, 5 first-round picks, a pick swap in 2028, and then a 2025 second-round pick. A whole lot to the Nets for Mikal Bridges for a very rare in-city trade. This is the first trade that the Nets and Knicks have made since 1983. This never happens. But Mikal Bridges ends up going to the New York Knicks. Let's start from the Knicks perspective here. Obviously, they now are the Villanova Knicks. Look at all these guys now on the same team. We already had Brunson, DiVincenzo, and Josh Hart. Now you get Mikal Bridges going to this already, loaded team in the Eastern Conference. What were your initial thoughts when this trade went down?
This is a win now move for the Knicks. Giving up 5 first-round picks is, the definition of we're trying to win right now, and we think that Mikal Bridges could possibly be our missing piece. And I got to tend to agree with them. This definitely gives them it's not level pegging with Boston, but it's them as the clear number 2 in the East, I would say. That was what I took from this trade more than anything.
Now, do you think that this was an overpay for Mikal Bridges? Because, again, 5 first-round picks to get Mikal Bridges, who, is a great, he is a great player, but I know a lot of people are talking about, he's never made an all-star game before. So is he worth 5 first-round picks?
It's hard to say. I really don't know. It depends if they make the conference finals this year.
I mean, I think you could definitely say that this was an overpay, but I think that it's worth it. I think that you have to make this trade. And with the 5 first-round picks being out there as well, it was, there were questions on whether or not OG Anunoby would re-sign after this trade. And he re-signs for the 5-year max contract. Of course, being a huge piece there for the Knicks being acquired mid-season, 5 years, $212 million. And he was huge for them. I mean, he did get injured at certain points in the regular season and in the playoffs, but when he played, this team was 20-3 in the regular season, nearly unbeatable because of their defense.
Yeah, it was a big move at the time when they made it last season with Toronto, and now, the last piece for the Knicks will be to re-sign Hartenstein, but the one thing that I do have to mention, I hate to do this, is that Brunson, Hart, Mikal Bridges, they really had they learned how to lose last year in USA ball together because they played like crap. I mean, that USA team in the summer last year, they just played like crap. And Brunson, Bridges, and Hart were all there. So that's not necessarily a red flag because the Knicks are way better. They just got better. The Knicks got a lot better.
Yeah, they definitely got a whole lot better with these two combined moves. I mean, looking at their roster now, I mean, that's just a great starting five there. I know Jackson will have his jokes about Julius Randle. We'll see if he is still a Knick when the regular season starts. But Brunson, Bridges, Anunoby, Julius Randle, and most likely Mitchell Robinson, because Isaiah Hartenstein is a guy that, of course, is still a free agent who it's becoming increasingly more likely that they won't be able to keep him unless he takes a pay cut. Which, who knows? Maybe he will take a pay cut to try to win with this Knicks team. But now you have Miles McBride, Dante DiVincenzo, and Josh Hart all off the bench now, most likely with this team, and that's just crazy because all three of these guys were great the whole season for the Knicks, and I think you're right. This does make them the number 2 team in the East behind the Boston Celtics, and they're going to have a shot at the Celtics. They have the wing defenders to guard Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. Even if Drew Holiday has it going, Derek White, they have the pieces there to guard the Boston Celtics. So I think huge move for the Knicks, of course. We'll see if this ends up being an overpay because, I mean, just anytime I see a deal, it's like, man, 5 first-round picks. It's a whole lot. It's a whole lot, but it is a win now move, and this team definitely has the pieces to win now.
Yes, sir.
So now looking at it from the Brooklyn Nets side of things, they bit the bullet. They decided to move on from Mikal Bridges. We've been laughing at them all season long, calling them the GFF because of them just, not knowing what they're going to do.
Garbage fire franchise.
Yes, for those who do not know. They picked a direction, and it was to be bad and get picks. And I think that this was an A+ move from the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, we joke about them all the time, but they made the right move, and it was a great decision to trade Mikal Bridges to be bad right now.
Yeah, I mean, I know that I heard some rumors they were asking for even more picks, but you can't pass up this offer.
No, not at all. Mikal Bridges, I believe his side was about to force him to New York. So the fact that they got 5 first-round picks for a guy that was like, okay, trade me here and nowhere else, just great. It was great. I mean, I don't think you could have gotten anything better for Mikal Bridges. Like, I know during the season they received an offer of 4 first-round picks and maybe it was Dylan Brooks. I think it was something from the Rockets. And they didn't take it then. It's like, man, you're not going to get anything better than this. They did. They got an extra first-round pick. So kudos to the Nets for waiting because they actually got what they wanted. And then right after this, they made another pretty big move with the Houston Rockets.
Got their picks back.
They got their picks back. They got their picks back. So this allows them to go full rebuild, full tank mode. They will be one of the 5 worst teams in the NBA to try to get in that stacked, loaded 2025 draft that we were talking about. So they got their picks back from the Rockets here. What are your thoughts on Brooklyn really making this move and finally pushing the rebuild button?
I'm excited to see where Cam Johnson lands because I think he's going to be on the move. And I'm also I don't know. I don't like the fact that we know who one of the worst 5 teams in the league is going to be this year. Like, I kind of hate the fact that it's come to a point where it's like, yeah, this team has no chance. They're going to be in the bottom 5. That's just kind of been decided. Hopefully, like, those 5 spots don't get all like filled out. Like, I would hate to have 25 teams competing really like to try and win, and then 5 that are literally like competing against each other to try and see who can be with the worst.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of what happened this year when you look at Detroit, getting the worst record and they got 5th. The Hornets had the 3rd worst record. They got 7th. Even Atlanta getting number 1 as a play-in team, Houston getting 3 is nearly a play-in team. We kind of got that this year. So maybe it could happen 2 years in a row. But you are right, though. I mean, it does suck that we already know, like, these teams are going to intentionally lose going into the season. But I think, individually for the Brooklyn Nets, it's great because this is exactly what they needed to do. We would have laughed at them if they didn't move Mikal Bridges and they ran this whole thing back again next season. We'd be laughing at them.
So they could also move Cam Thomas now that I'm thinking about it.
They could. I think that he will be the guy that they'll keep. I think everyone else on the roster is going to be up for grabs. Well, besides Nick Claxton as well. After this, Nick Claxton agreed to a 4-year, $100 million deal to stay with the Brooklyn Nets, which I thought was kind of surprising as well, because this is a guy that, double-double machine, very good shot blocker. I'm surprised that he decided to stay in Brooklyn when other teams could have definitely used his services. I know Memphis would definitely have used his services. I'm wondering that if they would have, if Nick Claxton didn't extend with Brooklyn, if Memphis would have drafted a center at 9, or if they would have gone a different direction and targeted Claxton in free agency.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah, so he ends up staying in Brooklyn. So he and he and Cam Thomas will just stay up there in Brooklyn there until, most likely those two guys won't finish their contracts there. But who knows? They're not in a horrible, situation. They got their picks back. They can be bad this first year, get in this 2025 draft class, also with a max contract spot if anyone ends up wanting to go to Brooklyn again. We, didn't work out the last time, but, now that they have their picks, maybe it could work a second time. So I think that this is a move that Brooklyn had to make to get their picks back. Now, in return of this, the Nets sent the Houston Rockets the Phoenix Suns draft picks from the Kevin Durant trade. And this was probably the biggest moment from that trade, when Woj just casually slips in there. Houston acquires Phoenix's draft picks to try to get Kevin Durant. What? Like, they are going big name hunting here this offseason. We talked about their whole roster before being so talented. Do you think that this team should be thinking about, going to get a big name like a Kevin Durant to try to win now?
No. I like the roster, the guys that we named, and Ime Udoka. I like them together. I think they should stick with what they got, at least to start.
Yeah, I would probably have to agree as well. The other side of that is, of course, they have all these young, talented guys, also on the bench, like Cam Whitmore, Amin Thompson, Tari Eason, who are going to be on the bench. Will they want bigger roles, and will you have to trade them eventually? Because these guys most likely, even if they are stuck on the bench for their first 3-4 years with the Rockets, they'll probably get a contract offer in the offseason. You will have to pay them. Would you move those guys to get a veteran that could help you win now, to where to prevent you from having to pay guys that you're really not playing? That's the other side of this. I think that you're right. Houston should just play this year out unless a big name comes available. Like, as of now, there really isn't a big name available. Like Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, those guys are not going to go anywhere this offseason. I think the Suns will go one more year to see how that goes. Donovan Mitchell will most likely stay with the Cavs, so that's off the books. Jimmy Butler, he's on the last year of his deal, and he already said he's not signing an extension with anyone, so I don't think that would be worth it. I think you just got to play this year out with the guys.
Yeah. And it could go really well.
Yeah, it definitely could be, it definitely could go very well. You could, have a year of being competitive, try to make a playoff push, and then maybe the next year, then that big name comes available. I don't think that they should force anything right now.
I agree.
Moving on, let's go to some extension news. Some guys staying with their teams. We've got Bam Adebayo staying with the Miami Heat for 3 years, $166 million. These extensions are going to be no-brainer moves. Bam, incredible for Miami the last few years. He's going to be their, real franchise cornerstone, really. Like, we don't know what will happen with Jimmy Butler. Tyler Hero's a guy that's being dangled around in trade talks really every year since he's entered the league. But Bam is going to be a staple there, and for good reason, because he's just so good on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, one of my favorites. Became one of my favorites in the finals last year just because of how hard he played for the Heat throughout their entire playoff run last year. It was incredible.
Yeah, so we'll see how far the Heat can go with Bam there as their franchise guy, if they can really pick it up after a couple disappointing regular seasons. Like, even though the Heat made the finals back in 2023, they've been playing teams the last couple of seasons. Can they do more? That is the question with this team going forward. Now, going to the opposite conference with the Denver Nuggets, they made a bunch of different moves. Jamal Murray, their point guard, they extended for 4 years, $209 million. Another no-brainer move. One of their perfect fits with Nikola Jokic, of course, championship duo there back last season. But their starting shooting guard, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, declined his player option. So could he be on the move? This is one of the Nuggets' most important pieces. I don't think they really could afford to lose him, but this is some pretty big news that he declined his option to stay there.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like he's going to be playing for Denver next year.
Unless it's, maybe to try to get more money. KCP.
The Clippers GM had a statement put out. I don't know if you saw that or not.
What was it?
It was something like, we'll be fine without KCP, or something like, it wasn't the same we're fine in the West that we heard from Memphis, but it was along those lines, like Christian Braun, Christian Braun is one of the best net rating guys in the league. Like, he can fill that spot. Like, I'll see if I can find it real quick.
Yeah, that's interesting because, this is a guy I don't think that the Nuggets can afford to lose him because he's so perfect playing with Jokic. He's turned into such a great catch-and-shoot three-point shooter these last 2 seasons. It would stink for him to, end up leaving. But sometimes that's what happens with championship teams. Guys want to get paid and you end up losing them. But it would be tough for Denver as well because this is a team that, they really can't afford to lose much depth. In efforts to clear up money to try to sign Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, the Nuggets traded backup point guard Reggie Jackson along with 3 second-round picks to Charlotte to clear up cash to try to sign KCP back. So you can't really afford to lose KCP because if you do, you end up losing your backup point guard and your starting shooting guard for a team that is very, very top-heavy.
So Calvin Booth is the Nuggets GM.
Yes.
And yesterday he said, we'll be okay if KCP doesn't return.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. That's very, very interesting. I wonder if he said anything else in that because, I think he would know how important he is. But no, he did say, I think we'll be okay if KCP doesn't return. That is very, very intriguing. Very, very intriguing if that ends up happening. But, I think Christian Braun, if he ends up replacing – I'm just worried about their bench again because that's where they really, came up short against Minnesota. They really couldn't play anyone on their bench besides Christian Braun. And if he's your only bench option, even for a team that has the best starting 5 in the league, or in the West at least, I won't go crazy. Boston, you can debate those two, but you need a bench. You do need some players off your bench to help you win. So the Nuggets will try to do all they can do, I'm sure, to try to keep KCP, and if not, try to go in a different direction to get another veteran to start there for the Denver Nuggets. That's really all the big major moves that have happened over the last few days, but which is great. It's a lot of crazy stuff going around. Some minor ones. We have the Phoenix Suns guard Eric Gordon, another veteran, declines his $3 million player option. So clearly he doesn't think that the Suns will contend. He, at this point of his career, is going to want to go somewhere to try to win a championship. Maybe he ends up going to Denver. That could be someone that could fit there with Jokic there. Other small news. We had some draft day trades. Already mentioned the Davion Mitchell to Toronto. Houston, actually, they made another trade. They got Atlanta Hawks first-round pick from 2022, AJ Griffin,
right,
which I thought was very, very surprising because AJ Griffin had a very good, very solid rookie season. Really didn't get to play a whole lot last year, and the Hawks are already moving on from him and sending him to Houston.
Yeah, that'll be something to watch for sure.
To see how he can play there in Houston with already, all those wings there. But that's really all the news that we got from the last couple of days. Now all the attention goes to this coming Sunday, actually. Sunday at 6 o'clock is when free agency starts. the free agency period starts, so all the upcoming free agents can start talking with other teams. We've got a bunch of extensions from guys talking to their current teams, but that's probably going to be the first day where we get to see some real player movement that aren't just, trades. We're going to get to see actual free agents on the move. And man, it is going to be a lot of fun to see where these guys end up moving, because there are some guys like a DeMar DeRozan, a Klay Thompson, guys that could be on the move to other teams.
We got Summer League starting basically the week after. So a lot of fun stuff coming up.
Yes, we do. We might have to hop on and do another podcast soon to do a free agency preview or something to get all these guys going. But
we should be back to our Tuesday, Friday schedule here.
Yeah, we definitely could now that the playoffs are over and it's the off season. We really could do whatever. But if you guys enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe for more NBA content. Hope you guys enjoyed. Leave comments with your thoughts on the NBA draft. Your biggest winners, biggest losers. The New York Knicks now acquiring Mikal Bridges. Are they the second best team in the East? Are they even the favorite from the East to come out and win the title? Let us know what you guys think. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we will catch you in the next one.
Peace.